In an increasingly complex world, nothing is more valuable than understanding the simplicity and practicality of nature. This understanding is the defining characteristic of a bow hunter. Welcome to episode 10 of the SOTH Podcast. We are reviewing some of the footage from 2.
Yeah, I've been excited about this all week, man. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, so this was the opening sequence that I put together, and it's pretty much just a montage that would be the next step from Ghost. For those of you that have seen Ghost, right at the end of it, I caught a glimpse of a good buck on a trail camera, a really good buck, and he kind of consumed my thoughts for a while, and I got permission from one of the neighbors to plant a food plot, so that was kind of my
your attempt at stacking the odds in your favor a bit there.
And he was definitely something else. I only had a couple of pictures of him. And I think I knew where he was bedding because I had found a really big bed, and I knew where a majority of his rubs were, and usually pretty close to bedding. So just down the hill from that plot, I was lucky, from his, what I thought was his bed, was a nice open piece of land, right, just adjacent to a creek.
Right.
And my plan was pretty much open it up as much as I can, and just kind of work the soil with my hands and lime it and try to concentrate some kind of food there, just because it was such a huge piece of property,
right,
with no really concentrated food. So I thought that was my best option there, and I went with some forage greens. And this is basically just bringing us into, once I got that plot in, just like this year, it seems like it's going to be fall in no time. I have to actually start prepping some of my plots here, but what I went with was Northridge Wildlife Forage, the forage greens. And I had really good results excuse me, with that blend in the past. I had a lot of actually data. I planted it 2 years in a row in plots that I didn't even hunt, but I had cameras on it. And
sure.
It's the blend for a bow hunter, because right when that first good frost hits, all those, radishes and turnips,
they all sweeten up and become real palatable.
It turns on. And
yeah.
There'll be doe in there. And that's kind of how it works. But, I mean, even in the early season, it'll draw deer in. They'll be eating the tops off your radishes and whatnot. And basically that year, I stayed out of it. I tried to stay out of where I was for as long as possible. And it was October 15th, which ended up being the first night I decided to hunt it, which was, I'll just show you the footage. We'll let that play. Hey, it's October 15th. We got a cold front moving in tonight, and I finally decided to hunt my food plot stand on the big mountain property. There's no concentrated food source here, so this food plot is going to be the key. I already have bucks working the scrape that I made down at the bottom there, and right up the hill here is where I had pictures of that monster last year, and I'm pretty sure he beds about 200 yards up the hill. I've got an ideal setup here. It's just a matter of if he decides to show up or not. So if there's any night to be sitting here, it's tonight. So let's see what happens. most of the plots that I've planted have all been the same size, like 60 yards long by 30 wide.
I gotcha.
So I'll just explain this here.
And it was the forage greens, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's it's got a lot of good stuff in it, man. I mean, like you said, the tops are real good for the earlier season, and then the radishes and the turnips and all that stuff that are in it. That's great for set like the later season and into the winter months. It gives them a lot of food.
Right.
Kind of hold them in that beacon, you know what I mean? That's especially when you have a place, like you said, there's not a lot of concentrated food. Sure, there's probably tons of browse, but you throw a big chunk of, the forage greens out there in the middle, that's kind of hard for them to resist. And like you said, the doe show up, well, you know what's going to happen come rut.
Yeah. Yep.
The doe are there, the buck will be there.
Yep. Hunt the doe.
That's it.
And that was pretty much it. I had places on that mountain where I would see deer at a certain time of the day. So, I had stands where I would get doe walking through there first thing in the morning, and that was about it. So putting this food source there were always doe kind of just mulling around on the outside.
Sure.
And it on top of that, there was a more of a reason that I put the plot there was because of the sign that I found around that plot. It was basically, like I said, adjacent to like a little creek, and there's a path that kind of ran parallel to the creek. So it became pretty clear once you walked the path that buck, used that as a travel route.
Sure.
They just cruise that during the rut. And right in this one corner where I ended up setting the trail camera up, you'll see that in the footage. Every tree in there was just rubbed.
Right.
If not the year before, then freshly just that year.
Yeah.
And it was right in that one corner. And my plan was to put a mock scrape there.
Okay.
And we talked about this. I forget which podcast it was, but
yeah, it was a few back. Yeah.
Yeah. I actually urinated myself.
Yeah.
It was the first one I ever did to start it, and it was the earliest that I ever had a buck working a scrape. And it was this video, and we'll just I'll let this play.
Yeah, this is pretty good footage of a buck being, pretty intensely working an area. And it's funny, since you mentioned that, I've actually seen a few posts on social media about people using their own urine.
Yeah.
So I was like, wow, there's something to this,
Yeah. But then what happens here, this is the first night that I sat there, and it was there was a cold front moving in, like I said, and I think I had a couple doe in the plot earlier, but that same buck ended up showing up again.
Well, they say a large number of good buck are taken on the first time that you sit a specific stand.
Yeah.
The first sit, there's a big theory on that. That your first sit might be your best sit, in a certain location.
So now again, this is October of 2015. So November of 2014 was when I harvested that deer and ghost, that 8-pointer. And my mindset going into that season was I want to harvest a 3.5-year-old.
Sure.
So with this being so early in the season and just being that I felt so good sitting over this plot, and I just felt like and honestly, I love that stand setup that I'm in there. It's a big pine tree. When you're in that stand, you're just about 30 feet over the plot because it dips down.
I gotcha.
You know what I mean? It is such an awesome stand. I have this big platform stand. I think it's like the Bigfoot XL or something. It's a cheap stand, but oh man, it's in the right spot. And
sure.
It's just, I love sitting in it.
And he's a nice buck, man. He's a good, respectable little 8-pointer there. Or is he a 9?
He's a 9, yeah.
9-pointer, yeah.
Yeah, you can see on that side.
Yeah, he's got that little
kicker there. And it's I don't know. It was just one of those things, I shot a buck of that same caliber the year before, and I just wasn't there. I had enough time to look at them.
It was early in the season, you know what I mean? You had some time to kind of take an inventory there.
And that was just, it wasn't right. So that's how I made my decision there, and that's the first piece of footage that I'm going to show everyone, I guess, from 2. This was kind of an experiment just to go through this and see how this works and how it edits together, and if it works on a visual platform as well as an audio one like the podcast. We'll see what happens, but I mean there's a lot going on there.
Absolutely. And it's kind of cool, a different perspective. And again, I mean, I've seen Ghost, obviously, and a number of people who probably are listening to the podcast have most likely seen it. If you have not seen it, you got to check it out. Take a peek at it. It's everything from the music to the footage. It's really something to see. So check it out, because it's going to actually give you a lot of insight as to where these segments are coming from.
Yeah.
And just stylistically. And so, go check it out. You can find it on your Facebook, your YouTube.
Everywhere.
Yeah, it's around. It's not hard to find.
The best place to watch is on YouTube.
If
you could stream it. I tell everyone, stream it to a TV if you could.
Yeah.
Some way. Most people have access.
Well, the quality is there for it.
Yeah, put it in full HD because it's full surround sound, and it's it's a movie. I mean,
sure.
It's just about an hour long.
Yeah.
So that's what I tell most people. Enjoy it as you would a movie, because it tells a full story, and
that's it. It's going to give you a lot of insight as to what you're trying to accomplish with this through the podcast. Then it's a very unique perspective on it. So it's an exciting little project for sure.
Yeah, and it will definitely give you more insight as to where my head's at in a lot of this footage. You know what I mean? I know there's a ton of people out there that would have been happy to take that deer.
Sure.
And at a time there, I might have too. And it was a perfect film opportunity. Mm-hmm. It was a great opportunity, honestly. Yep. But it just wasn't right. Didn't jive with what I was trying to accomplish there. And I mean, to each their own, I guess.
Sure. I mean, I was telling you earlier, it reminded me of there was a 9-point that came in last year. I'm pretty sure it was a 9. It was hard to tell. It happened kind of fast. But it was not a huge buck, but he looked very similar to that one. And I just kind of messed up. Like I said, I had a chair squeak on me. I was in a ground blind. And I decided to come to full draw. I still wasn't 100% on whether I was going to shoot him or not, but he was really close. And I came to full draw, and as soon as I went to swing my bow on him, the chair squeaked, and he bolted. So I missed my opportunity. But, I mean, I had the camera there, but by the time everything happened, there's no way I was getting the camera on. It was either draw my bow or turn on the camera, and obviously I'm going to draw my bow.
Right.
So, it was just, I just got caught. I got caught, looking a different direction. So there was a doe out behind me, behind the blind, well, pretty distant, quite a distance out, and I was watching her, and I could hear the crunching of the leaves. It was the first really cold day we had last year.
I remember I was hunting.
Yeah, all of us, all the guys from PA bow hunting, were all in stands texting each other like clowns.
Yeah, that was a good morning.
But it was a great morning, and sure enough, he came, crunching the leaves through the other side, and I turned around just to catch him about 25 yards coming right at me. So, and if I had a chance, I probably would have let an arrow fly at him, but it was just one of those things where I wasn't 100% sold, and I figured if I come to full draw, as soon as I do, I'm going to know. I'm going to know if I'm going to let this arrow go or not. And and I didn't get the opportunity, so, it is what it is. But the good news is I'm pretty sure he's still out there, because I hadn't heard anything about anybody shooting a deer up there. So who knows? Maybe he'll be a really nice, respectable. He was a respectable deer last year, but who knows? He'll be a much better deer this year.
He'll be much more mature this year.
Well, that's it. His neck and his body size is what sold me on him. That's what caused me to really decide to draw on him, because he was a good-sized deer. So, we'll see. Maybe he's another year older this year. We'll see. Maybe I'll get another crack at him. Who knows?
Yeah, and before we turned the microphones on and we started recording, we were kind of talking about that, because kind of the story of two is. I don't know. Is it contradictory in a way? Sort of. I pass up a lot of deer.
Yeah.
That's kind of what ends up happening. You're going to see a lot of the deer. I mean, pretty much every encounter that I've had for the past 3 years I have on film, and I'll show you each one, and it's all situational.
Exactly.
And I think that I hope that people can watch this and take something away from it in regards to, it's not always about what the deer is or how old he is or how many inches of antler he's carrying or
right.
Whatever it is that you're basing that decision off of. A lot of it is situational. And I know that this sounds a little bit vague right now, but if you stick with this and you watch a couple more segments, it'll
start to rear its head. Yeah, you'll get it.
Yeah, there's a bunch of good storylines that are going to come up in the next few episodes. We've got a lot of content to share here, and hopefully it'll get us amped up on deer season. I mean, I've been reviewing the footage from 2 a lot recently and trying to cut it up and figure out how we're going to talk about it and how we're going to present it. And just watching, I mean, I could smell the leaves turning colors, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I've been out putting out some mineral sites the last couple of weeks, and I got to go check some cameras and see if I want to move them or not. So yeah, it's time. It's start.